All right, folks, at NBA action last night, the Nets fell 87-79, so the series is tied now 2-2, and then I'll go back to Toronto, I think sometime this week. Well, and we're going to talk a little bit basketball, and we're going to really talk basketball, especially the game behind the game. And joining me is Duval Ellis of Elite Prototype. Duval Ellis is also former NFL player.
Yes, sir.
So thanks for coming, Duval.
No, thanks for having me.
We had you on a couple of weeks ago.
Yes,
and
sir.
also KJ Stroud of the Toronto Argonauts in the Canadian Football League. Yesterday, guys, you held a camp for youngsters, right? High school football players, junior high players. How did it go yesterday? Was that Sheepshead Bay High School?
It was great. It was my first annual free skills camp. I held it at Sheepshead Bay High School. From Pop Warner to high school athletes, athletes that are making that transition to college. My biggest thing was for the high school players simulating a college atmosphere, making it very chaotic, high level intensity, and getting coached up exactly how college athletes receive it now. So it's not a culture shock for them.
So they're basically going to stations and moving.
Yeah, stations, periods, moving at a high level, high demand reps.
And you also spoke at a high school today, or junior high school?
I spoke at junior high school, IS 303 out in Coney Island today.
So we're talking about careers.
It was career day. I spoke at the high school, just giving my journey, how I had a dream. I'm a kid from New York City.
Your journey ain't over, man.
No,
it's far from over. I know you want my job. Anyway, cool.
You know it.
All right. Anyway, hey, a lot of big stories in sports this week. The Northwest University on Friday, they voted for the unionization of college athletics. Also, and over the weekend, Donald Sterling, the president and owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, made some rude remarks. Let's get into first the union issue. Now, the votes are right now sealed.
Right.
They're going to be sealed for some time, from what I gather.
Right.
Maybe for about a couple of months, maybe weeks. We don't know.
Right.
But in terms, what do you feel how the players voted?
You can never be sure. I mean, you hear reports that some of the players have been coerced to vote no, because they don't want to seem as if they're going against the university. I think that would be a huge mistake for them to vote no. I feel like players need to have a voice, especially in the decision-making process. And, a lot of people feel like it's about money, but it's not about money. It's just about having some sort of accountability to hold coaches and universities to a higher standard, to protect the players during their time at the school and afterwards.
I agree. Just piggybacking on what he said, you got to protect us. We go out there every day, countless weeks, putting our bodies on the line. I feel like not everybody has health coverage just in case you get hurt, and you have to have some type of union to protect yourself just in case something happens.
And this is also, we was talking earlier before the show, you also elaborated on the situation at Grambling University this year when the players stood up. Right,
absolutely. I mean, that's a perfect example. You look at Grambling State, and they had a lot of unsafe working conditions. And for anyone who goes to a university to have to deal with mold in the locker rooms, mold in the weight room, or the flooring coming up, guys getting injured doing box jumps because the flooring is terrible, or they had an outbreak of staph infection because the jerseys are unclean. These are things that went on for years, and no one felt the need to stand up and say something because they felt like they were going to be scrutinized. And if you had a union rep, for example, and someone could go to the union rep and say, y'all need to investigate these things, no one would have to stand up. Your union rep would come in, take a look at the school, and they would be the voice for the athletes. This way, athletes don't feel the need to be scrutinized by not only players, but the coaching staff.
And also transparency. Now we have transparency, so much transparency in terms of the economics of college athletics, and the players want their share.
Yeah, well, I mean, you want to take this one?
You got it.
I feel like, for example, take Johnny Manziel. Last year the school made millions of dollars off Johnny Manziel, and there's NCAA rules that says he can't get a percentage of it. I feel like that's exploitation. Now, he's an isolated case, but when you look at the school in general, they've made millions off of these guys. And when these rules were in place, teams weren't getting multi-million-dollar TV deals. So the rules were in place before the new brand of college football. So now it's a new brand of college football. Things have to change.
College sports in general, right? And also, is there a race factor? Are we looking at that? Because, no one has really addressed that too much.
I feel like it's more of a class factor. There's black and white college football players, black and white college basketball players, but it's an economic factor. It's just a thing where most of the players in these sports are African American. They come from humble backgrounds. They don't have the representation to voice their opinion and get their opinions heard.
And also players would love to eat more. I mean, you had the situation where Shabazz Napier a couple of weeks ago, after winning the national championship for UConn, said he was going to bed hungry every night.
I mean, it's a crazy situation. Like, I know I've had teammates, similar at my university that experience things like that, but that's something that shouldn't be tolerated. Here it is, universities make so much money off of athletes. I think no athlete should go nights without eating. I mean, that's ridiculous. As much money that they revenue off us, why not take care of us and make sure we have the things that we need to survive?
All right, let's switch gears for a moment. Over the weekend, as you know, you learned over TMZ, it's been all over the airwaves, the situation with Donald Sterling, making his remarks that he did not want blacks coming or attending his games, he only wanted them to play. So what do you guys take on that so far? And also, you know what? This dates back to years, man. This thing has been going on for quite some time. Right. As far as I remember, you guys weren't born yet, but I'm going to date you anyway. Back in 1987, shut up. Back in 1987, before the anniversary of Jackie Robinson, on Nightline, Al Campanis, who was the vice president of the Los Angeles Dodgers, said blacks did not have the necessities to swim or manage a club. Then you had Marge Schott in the 90s, who spoke about Eric Davis, saying that she was his, that he's my rich end millionaire. And he had a situation also at Curtis High School recently, maybe about 10 years ago. Timothy Gannon, who was the coach of the boys basketball team at Curtis High School, said to his players, to inspire his players, he said, y'all are playing like a bunch of ends. And he's now the principal of Port Richmond High School. So maybe it pays.
Well, here's the truth. We live in a time now where political correctness is valued more than truth. So what I'm about to say, people aren't going to like, but I really don't care. Racism still exists in the United States. The bottom line is the people who make the laws, the people who have the long money to own teams, own universities, and make decisions, grew up in a time where blacks were looked at as less than human. We couldn't vote. So why do people sit back and make it seem as if racism doesn't exist? The bottom line is Sterling is not the only person who feels like this. There are a lot of owners throughout the league, a lot of coaches who feel the same way.
You spoke about a situation also with the NFL coach. You want to elaborate on that? You don't have to name the coach or the player?
I'm not going to name any names. I'll tell you two. For example, one, I had a coach telling me that if I didn't, get in a rock or step, my black behind would be back in Brooklyn pumping gas. We had a coach put a drum on a piece of paper. The drum was a percussion drum, but it was on a slave ship. And this was first day. This was his first day as the offensive coordinator, and told us
this is in the NFL.
This in the NFL. Told us there's a new owner driving this ship, and everyone sat in that meeting and said, I can't believe that this is what's being presented to us as players. Black players were upset, white players were upset, and it was a big uproar within the locker room. But at the same time, we all felt like, what's there to do?
Do you think this is a mentality that has to die over a period of years? Then?
No, it's not going to die. We have to make a stand as players. We have to make a stand.
The players also, as far as from the Los Angeles Clippers, should they have played in this game? Should they have stood up and said, hey, you know what? We're not going to play. We're going to stand up like Jim Brown. We're going to stand up like Muhammad Ali. We're going to stand up like those athletes who previously suffered and take a stand. The hell with the money. We don't need the money because we got enough money.
I think if I was Chris Paul and I was suiting up tonight to play basketball, I wouldn't do it. I think your mom, your parents, the people that support you, that got you to that point, he's referring back to those people that sit in the stands and clap and cheer for you. And like I said, if I was Chris Paul tonight, I wouldn't suit up. I wouldn't suit up. You got to look at yourself in the mirror as a man. And do you accept what the owner said? Do you stand up for it?
Just turn the jersey over. That doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah. I mean, really, it doesn't do anything. I feel like there's going to be a residual effect, because I can tell you in this offseason, when it's time for free agents to sign, you're not going to see any African Americans signing with the Clippers. When those guys have opportunity to opt out of their contract and go to other cities, they're not going to be playing for the Clippers. So there will be a residual effect.
And usually, like I said, I went through Al Campanis, Marge Schott, Timothy Gannon, the coach of Curtis. This has been episodic, and we usually go through these episodic ventures.
Right.
Hopefully, this will open up a conversation about race in sports, race in general, and we can.
We don't need to have any more conversations. People need to take stands. Bottom line. Bottom line. Athletes who hold power, for example, professional athletes who have tons of money, need to take a stand. And it's not just in athletics. It's in the media world. It's in the entertainment industry. The same things are happening. People who decide what kind of content we see.
But they're not going to take that stand because it's too much money, man. They're not going to lose their money. And a lot of folks in love with the money more than with their people.
But at the same time, you got to ask yourself, what do you stand for as a man or as a woman? Like, what do you stand for? What are your morals? That's what it's going to come down to.
And ultimately, how do you expect them to respect us if we don't respect ourselves enough to make a stand and say, we're not going to take this anymore. You look at other, for example, if you say something against homosexuality right now in the NFL, you get fined. You want to know why? Because homosexuals are making a stand and saying, we're not going to take it anymore. I feel like African Americans need to take the same stance. Fine, we're not going to go to your games. You don't want African Americans in your stands will be empty because you will not see any African Americans at the Clippers Stadium, bottom line, Clippers Arena.
Hey, enough said.
There it
Thanks
is.
for coming. Got to have you back. Good luck in Toronto.
Thank you.
All right, cool. All right. Up next, we'll meet two comedians / storytellers. They'll be appearing here in our Stoop series tomorrow night. But first, one of them is Chris Gethard, who's host a pretty crazy program on community access television in Manhattan. Let's watch a little bit, but don't miss the woman in the background who hula hoops throughout the entire show.